Hi students, how are you today? We're about to have our first test in algebra, so I thought it would be great if we did a bit of a study guide. So let's go back to the beginning and think about all of the numbers to which each one of these numbers belong. We're using R for, excuse me, I have a little bit of a cough here. I'm using R for all real numbers, I for irrational numbers, Q for rational numbers, Z for integers, W for whole numbers, and N for natural numbers. So remember, we want to evaluate anything that needs to be evaluated. So, for example, we have negative 14 divided by 2, which would equal negative 7, and negative 7 is an integer. Negative 7 is a rational number because all fractions are rational numbers. And negative 7 is a real number. Now remember, the way you do this, you want to go back to the chart that I gave you. It's under 1.2 under handouts. It's called a flow chart, and it gives you all the questions to ask. Just take each one of these numbers and put it through that flow chart, and you can see the answer. So we've the square root of 64. Well, the square root of 64 is 8. So that is a natural number, a whole number. That's an integer. That's a rational number. And it's also a member of the real number family. So we're going from all of the types of numbers, parts of the number system, all the way from here. If we look at this chart, let me bring this up for you. Dismiss. Okay, if it's a natural number, it's automatically a whole number, an integer, and a rational number. If it's a whole number, it's automatically an integer and a rational number. If it's an integer, it's automatically a rational number. So that's what we want to remember. Now, the thing with zero is a whole number, but it's not a natural number. So it is a whole number, it is an integer, it is a rational number, and it's a member of the real number system. Pi, however, is irrational. It goes on and on with no repeating, although it is a member of the real number system. Now, where we have a repeating decimal, we have a rational number, and which is also a member of the real number system. Looking back at this chart, I want you to think of it this way. All of this, the entire thing, is part of the real number system. So you can even write in here, real number system. So everything here is a real number. So if we look at 3/8, 3/8 is a rational number, and it's part of the real number system. So we can do the same thing with all of these. There are only two irrational numbers here. The negative square root of 72 is irrational. And of course, pi is always irrational. So that's D. Notice I put the letter for each of these. So be careful when you evaluate these, because let's look at J. 4/9, we cannot reduce that at all, but 36/9, that would be 9 goes into 36 4 times. That would be 4. So K is a natural number, which means it's also a whole number, an integer, and a rational number. J, however, is only a rational number. The decimal, negative 0.2, but with this repeating line at the top, that's a rational number. B, number 18, is a natural number. That's part of everything, except it's not irrational. The negative square root of 100 is an integer, -10. E, the 0, is the only one that's a whole number. These, K and B, are also whole numbers. It's the only one that's a whole number, but not a natural number. That's the thing with 0. So actually what I should have put is, erase that. What I should have put is E, which is the letter of the number. So what haven't we done? G is an integer, -5. And F is a rational number. And H is a rational number. I think that takes care of all of them. So use the chart in the handout section of Teams. Okay, here we're asked to identify the property shown below, just the property. So 4 plus the quantity of x plus y equals the quantity of 4 plus x plus y. That's a grouping property. That's the associative property. 2/5 times 5/2 equals 1 is the inverse. The inverses create, the multiplicative inverse creates 1. If the square root of 49 equals 7 and 7 equals 3 plus 4, then the square root of 49 equals 3 plus 4. Then this jumps over the 7 and also equals this. That is the transitive property. This is the reflexive. 8x squared times 1 equals 8x. That is an identity. 10y plus -10y equals 0. That's another inverse. A plus 4 times 0 equals 0 is the zero products property. Five times the quantity of x plus 7 equals, well, it's -5. -5 times the quantity of x plus 7 equals -5x minus 35. We're just multiplying over. That's, of course, the distributive property. And x plus 2 plus y equals 2 plus x plus y. That's the commutative property. And that's where order does not matter. And if x equals -1, then -1 equals x. That's the symmetric property. Okay, let's move on. So we're going to answer true or false and provide an example if false. So the set of negative numbers are closed under under division. That's false. And we can prove that's false with the example of -36 divided by -9 equals a +4. So a negative times a negative actually always equals a positive. So the set of negative numbers is not closed under division. The set of whole numbers is closed under subtraction is also false, because if we have 0 minus 9, we're going to have -9, which is not a whole number. The set of integers are closed under multiplication. That's a true statement. Now let's look at absolute value. So absolute value is the distance of a number from 0. So the absolute value of -21 is 21. The absolute value of 5 is 5, and that would equal 26. So here we have the absolute value of -10 minus 4, which would be the absolute value of -14, which would equal 14. Here we have the we have 10 minus 2, we're evaluating an expression here, times 3 squared plus 13. Always start with multiplication and division before addition and subtraction. So that would be 10 minus 2 times 9, exponent first, plus 13. So now we're going to do the multiplication. 10 minus 18 plus 13, negative 8 plus 13 equals 5. Okay, now we start from the inside and work our way out. So we have negative 5 plus 1. So that is going to be our negative 4. Divided by 2. All of that. Whoops, forgot to put my 2. Let's fix that. Okay, and there's my bar. All that raised to the power of 3 minus 7. So now we're going to have negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2, raised to the power of 3 minus 7. Negative 2 to the third power is negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2, which is negative 8 minus 7, which equals negative 15. Okay, let's work on this one. So first we have 25 plus 5 squared, which is 25, divided by 5, all over 7 minus, we have to do the multiplication first. 12 divided by 4 is 3, plus 2, and that will equal 25 divided by 5 is 5. Remember, division and multiplication before addition and subtraction. 25 plus 5 over 7 minus 3 is 4 plus 2, which equals 30 over 6, which simplifies to 5. Next one, we have, let's see, 3 minus 7. So we have negative 4 squared plus 11 divided by the absolute value of negative 2 is 2 plus the absolute value of negative 1, which is 1. So 4 squared is 4 times 4, so 16 plus 11 over 3, which equals 27 over 3, which simplifies to 9. Well, let's move on. Evaluating expressions. So we've got, if x equals 2 and y equals negative 3, always use parentheses. 3, so x equals 2 times 2 to the third. This stays outside, minus 8, negative 3 to the second power. And when we evaluate all of that, I'm going to go a little fast here, it will equal negative 48. Just be careful with your substitutions. So we have the absolute value of 7 minus 4 times 2. That's the substitution. A equals 7, B equals 2. So that's going to be 7 minus 8, still absolute value. And that's going to be the absolute value of negative 1, which equals 1. Okay, here W is negative 3. I'm sorry, X is negative 3, W is negative 2, and Y is 1. So W is negative 2. So we've got negative 2 squared plus 2, negative 3, 1. So negative 2 squared is 4 plus 2 times negative 3 is negative 6 times 1. So we can get rid of the positive sign there because this is really 4 minus 6, which equals negative 2. And here we're going to have 7. C is negative 4 squared plus 5 over 4. A is 1 plus, oh, I'm sorry, it's not plus, that's minus. Minus negative 5. And let's start evaluating. So we have 7 times 16 plus 5, and subtracting a negative makes them both positive, so that would be 4 plus 5, which equals 117 over 9, which equals 13. Okay, our next topic, translating expressions, equations, and inequalities. The product of a number and 7 increased by 3 would be 7n plus 3. 1 less than twice a number, that's a quantity, so that's 2n minus 1. 4 times the difference of a number and 9 is negative 30. So 4 times the difference of a number and 9, be careful, that and does not mean addition, equals negative 30. 5 more than the quotient of a number and 8 is 42. So the quotient of a number and 8 is n over 8, but it says 5 more. So 5 plus n divided by 8 equals 42. The auditorium can hold a maximum of 100 people. So I'll use the first letter, A for auditorium. If it's a maximum, then 150 can be part of the answer set. So A is less than or equal to 150. You must be at least 25 years old, I imagine they mean, to rent a car. So age, I'll use A again. 25 is okay, so we can include 25. So age must be greater than or equal to 25. Let's move on to simplifying expressions. So we've got 1n minus 5n is negative 4n. We have 4 minus 9, so that's minus 5. Here we have 7x minus 3x, so that's 4x. Negative 4y minus 8y is negative 12y. And we have positive 12, negative 8, so that's going to give us positive 4. And that's the final answer. Here we have to distribute the negative 2 through the 4x and the 7. 18 minus 8x minus 14 plus 5x will equal. So let's start with the x terms. Negative 8 plus 5 is negative 3x. 18 minus 14 is a positive 4, and that's a final answer. Now we have to distribute here. 9 times x, 9 times negative 3. So we have 9x minus 27. A negative sign implies a negative 1. The effect it has on that amount in the quantity is simply to change the sign. So that's going to become, the positive x will be negative x, and the positive 2 will be negative 2. Now we combine like terms. 9 minus 1 is 8x. Negative 27 minus 2 is negative 29. And that's our final answer. Now let's write the perimeter of the triangle in simplest form. So we have 2x plus 3x plus 1 more x, 6x. We have 8 plus 1 is 9, minus 6, so 9 minus 6 is a positive 3. Now, let's remember with a rectangle, we're going to have 4 sides. So we have 2v plus 13 and another 2v plus 13. And here we have on the right v minus 5. So on the left, we're also going to have v minus 5. So let's start with the v's. I have 2, 4, 5, 6, 6v. Now I've got 13 and 13 is 26 minus 5 is 21 minus another 5 is 16. 6v plus 16. And let's move on to the last page. And we have some two-step equations. The first thing we want to do, we have to isolate this 3x term. We have to get rid of the negative 7 by adding 7. Whatever we do to one side, we do to the other side. And that cancels 3x, 11 plus 7, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Sorry, I was thinking about something else. 18. So 3x plus 8 equals 18. Now we just divide by 3. It's a pretty easy one. X equals 6. Okay, let's multiply both sides by 4. This cancels. X plus 8 equals 12. You know what? I'm going to go back, and I should not have multiplied by 4 before I need to get rid of that 8 first. And I don't want you guys to make that mistake. Let's subtract the 8 first. That's the better practice. Now we have x divided by 4 equals 3 minus 8 is negative 5. So now we change the color, and we're going to multiply both sides of that equation by 4. And those will cancel. We have x equals negative 5 times 4 is negative 20. That is a final answer. Okay, so let's see. Here, we have a 2/5 x is one term. Negative 3 is another term. So let's get rid of the 3 by adding 3 to both sides of the equation. This will cancel. That gives us 2/5 x equals negative 17 plus 3 is negative 14. Now, change the color, and we will multiply both sides of this equation by the denominator, which is 5. That will give us 2x equals negative 14 times 5, which is 5, 10, 15, 20, 70, negative 70. We divide negative 70 by 2, and x equals negative 35. We could have also multiplied the negative 14 by 5 over 2. So that's another way you could have done it. So we have a positive 9 and negative 7x equals 16. Let's take care of the 9 first. So we have negative 7x equals 16 minus 9 is 7. And we divide both sides by negative 7. This cancels, and x equals negative 1. It's positive 7 divided by negative 7 is negative 1. Okay, here, the next one, I think the first thing I'll do is subtract 9 from both sides. And now I have negative 3/4 x equals 48. So let's do it the other way this time. I told you that there was kind of a couple of different ways of doing this. Let me just clean up a little bit here so I have some room. So I'm going to multiply this by negative 4 over 3. And whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. So this cancels. And I have x equals, what's 48 times negative 4 over 3? Well, let's make a sidebar. 48 over 1 times negative 4 over 3. Well, I see an opportunity to cancel, so I'm going to do that. 3 goes into itself one time. 3 goes into 48 16 times. So now I'm going to have a denominator of 1, which is what I want. 16 times negative 4 is negative 64. Negative 64 over 1 equals negative 64. And here, I think the first thing we want to do is lose the fraction. So I'm going to multiply both sides of the equation by 3. So this will cancel. That will give me x minus 17 equals negative 9. Now let's add 17 to both sides. And x equals negative 9 plus 17 is a positive 8. And that's the final answer. Our last topic is solving and graphing inequalities. So I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides of this inequality, which allows me to isolate the term with the variable on the left. So I have 3x is less than 9. So now I'm going to divide both sides by 3, and I have x is less than 3. And that's a final answer, but we need to graph it. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have an open circle with an arrow going in this direction. Okay, negative 2, or subtract 2 from both sides so that I can isolate that 5x. So I have negative 5x is greater than or equal to 50. And now I need to divide both sides by negative 5, but let's not forget what we need to know with an inequality is that when you multiply or divide by a negative, you have to flip that inequality sign. So now I will have x, I'll flip the sign, is less than or equal to negative 10, and that's a final answer. So I can, let's see, negative 13, negative 12, negative 11, negative 10, negative 9, negative 8, negative 7. So solid line because I have that equals. And we graphed to the left to negative infinity. Okay, for number 50, we'll subtract 11 from both sides. And that will give us x divided by negative 2 is less than or equal to 4. Now, multiply both sides by negative 2. So we're multiplying by a negative. So now we're going to have x is less than or equal to negative 8. That's a final answer. And let's see, I'm going to do 11, negative 10, negative 9, negative 8, negative 7, negative 6, negative 5, and an open dot, or sorry, closed dot on negative 8. We'll graph in this direction. Number 51, we'll add 1 to both sides of the inequality. And we have 4x is less than or equal to negative 36. Divide both sides by 4. And x, and we didn't divide by negative, so the sign stays the same, is less than or equal to negative 9. And I'll leave you to graph that on your own. Last two problems, we'll add 1 to both sides. And we have 5/8 x is less than or equal to 8. I'm sorry, 9 plus 1, 10. Someone is texting me right now while I'm trying to make this video, so I'm a little distracted. I apologize. 9 plus 1 is 10. Okay, so let's multiply by the inverse. 8 over 5 over 5. So this all cancels, and that gives me, I'm going to go up here. That gives me x. I haven't done anything with the negative yet, so we're not flipping the sign or anything. X is less than or equal to, and here I can put a 1 under that, cancel that, and 8 times 2 is 16. And I'll let you graph that on your own. Here I have to subtract 4, and that gives me This cancels. Negative x over 7 is less than 1. Now, I'm going to multiply both sides by negative 7. And that gets rid of the negative sign because I multiplied by negative 7, which means x is less than negative 7. So I think you can complete the last two on your own. I think that was a pretty good review. Work on these, and don't forget to email or chat any questions. Study hard, and you'll be great. Good luck.